All right. I'm just going to make sure the stream is actually up, and then we can get started on this. Actually up? Yes. Awesome. Cool. So, everything appears to be going well. That is good. That means things haven't broke yet. I think. I tested this for like 15 minutes. I don't think there are any dropped frame issues anymore. Whatever was happening during the Ludum Dare, I think that's good. I think that's fixed. We don't have to worry about that anymore. I'm gonna switch these because it's just easier this way. Hello. People are already here. Awesome. Cool. So this is just an impromptu stream for Unity Shell. We're going to try to see how far we can get. Maybe we'll get things actually executing. I don't know. So I have actually got a little bit done. That's good that it's better. So you can actually type now, and it actually works. Kind of cheated a little bit for this, but it works, and you can do multiple lines and all of that, which you couldn't do previously. So that's good. Things actually don't break. And so there's also a few other things going on here. I've thrown in a skin, which is just a GUI skin that has like a monospaced font and a few other things. That's why this looks a little bit different than everything else, because it's actually using a different style. So hopefully that's a little bit less annoying, and you can actually tell what things are now. So this is an, what's the license? An open font license. So it should be able to, I can redistribute it and all of that, so that'll be included with the project. But yeah, so how I fix things. This is gross, but I just started removing new lines and null characters from the string automatically with just empty stuff, which it worked. So I guess that was happening. What I was finding was there was a new line. Like all of those broken lines that we had from the previous video, what was happening is this new line was just filling it. And that was weird. I also started using this event.use. And what that actually does is, you'll notice if I type like QWER, now that I'm using the event, we're not actually selecting like different hotkeys up here as long as this shell is selected. Another cool thing, if I just close this, I added a hotkey, so it's Control tilde, but that actually opens this up and it will select it if it isn't selected. So I can actually, like if I select the project window down here or the console, I can hit that and start typing and it just works. So I think that's really handy because as long as you have a keyboard, you can start typing in this without having to use a mouse at all. So I think we're making progress. I don't know exactly where I want to take this, but I have some really dumb ideas. So yeah, this works for the most part. That's doing a little bit of fun stuff. This is all there to load our resources. And there's a few other things. I don't know. I was kind of, shoot, what was his name? Turret Box and I were kind of talking in the last video. He had some ideas on how he could improve this, and he kind of wanted me to stream. I think he's probably asleep because I'm pretty sure he's in Europe, which it's like 2 a.m. right now, 3 a.m. So he'll probably catch up with this later. We're going to be putting this project out on GitHub, or I'm going to be putting this project out on GitHub, and I'm really looking for people to help contribute to it. I think there's a lot that we can actually build out of this. I'm going to drop this. So there were... after the previous video, I kind of messed around with things a lot. I was trying to figure out how to make it actually work a little bit better because it wasn't. So the first thing I was thinking was I actually just had overlaid an actual full text field over the entire screen. So over this entire console was an invisible text field that you would actually type into. And I'd overwritten all the settings so you couldn't see it at all. And then I was just taking the output from that and dropping it in here. That worked, but it was gross. So we're not using that anymore. which means we don't have like copy and paste and all of that working. So I should have made like a task list or something to do. That would have been smart, but I didn't. So what we have right now is previous commands, and this will just be like the list of everything that you've done. I kind of want this to be buffered because there's going to be some really expensive things happening in this. I think I've mentioned it before, but I want to do like graphs and other things that you can actually like modify. And to actually do that, we're going to want more than just like a label. So I think the best way to do that is to actually abstract out something to actually render this. I don't think we could do that now, but probably not. It's yeah, it's a little bit too much work for now. It'll take probably about an hour-ish. Well, it wouldn't take that long. But anyway, what am I thinking about? I should have thought of this all before the stream. I was kind of running late and just kind of running around. But anyway, what do we want to do? Let's actually get it. Let's make some commands so you can actually write these things. And then we'll actually make something to discover them. I've been reading up on what's called a tree, not T-R-E-E, but T-R-E-I. And so that's a data structure that's used for like autocomplete and stuff. So we should be able to use that to autocomplete. I don't think we need to necessarily do that now, but we could. I don't know. This is just kind of work on things that you guys have suggestions for, or just do other stuff. So I'm going to actually pull out from this editors thing. One of the things that I want this to be able to be used for is I want a console anywhere, not just in the editor. So I want you to be able to write this, build all these scripts, have it so you can execute them in this window. But the actual logic for the for actually executing these things, I want that to be outside. So when you build your game, you can actually embed a console into that with a limited number of extra things that you can do. So if you want to like find the player position or something, you'd be able to actually reuse that command inside your game. Obviously, you use a different UI system, and we'd have to build that. But that's sort of one of the design things that I'm trying to keep in mind. So let's create interfaces. Let's actually just call it the console. Yeah, sure. We can call it that. What could go wrong? That's not what I want. Let's execute. So there's two things I've been thinking about. One of them is I want you to be able to actually, like, say you create a graph. That's going to be an image that you're going to have to update over time. And so the way I was thinking about that is you have to have something that can kind of subscribe to the Unity update tick. So that tick is actually recorded, which is kind of hard to do in here, especially if you're writing functions. There's no easy way to detect those ticks like that. So kind of dealing with that, we'll have to, for now, I'm thinking we can actually just start. Is this a good idea? Yeah, we'll just start with basic functions, and then we can actually add, I have like an object structure in my mind of what I want this to look like. That's going to have like an update and a draw. So it's kind of like a game loop inside of this. So you can actually display like updating things. So we'll see how that goes. Let's call it a command. Sure. Now the question is, do I remember how to make an annotation? I don't think I do. So this might be a little bit funny. Let's see here. Let me look this up because I'm going to totally screw this up. Annotation. That's not going to work. Can't just search for that. I suppose I can show you guys what I'm doing. Well, that's one way to do it. Okay. Cool. So we are How do we create a custom annotation? There we go. Attributes. Annotations are Java. Cool. So there is our attribute. And so what this does, what this attribute is going to do is it is going to designate a function anywhere in your code as a command that you can execute. And so what's the best way to do this? I kind of want you to be able to give it a name. I don't just want the function. Well, for now, let's actually just use the name of the function. So let's say I, for whatever reason, assign this command or this start to have the command. By doing that, this would add a command to our shell. So you could say start in the shell, and it would just execute. That's what this is going to do. We could add a name, but I'm not going to for now. But that's sort of the idea. Don't know about arguments yet, because I kind of want to do like chaining and stuff, so you can actually have like that graph and stuff that I was talking about. I want you to be able to pipe output from certain commands. Like say you have the position of your player. I want you to be able to pipe the position of the player into this command, and then it will reevaluate the position of the player and pipe it into your graph every frame. And then you'll get a graph of the player without necessarily having to write a separate graph location thing and give it some function or some object to track. That seems more difficult. But I don't know. So we don't need any of this. That can all go away. I think this is actually all we need for this. I'm just talking a lot. So there's our command. Let's make something for our command discovery. That's a really bad name. Oh well. It'll work for now. So what we need to do here is not that. I want to take this command and actually iterate over this to find whatever I'm working with. So this is going to be a way to discover inside of everything what you actually have. So for now, since we're not doing the autocomplete yet, we don't have that data structure. So I'm going to just use a dictionary here of strings. So these will be the names of the commands, and we're going to map it to something. I want this to be called command attribute. And so IntelliSense will automatically remove this attribute bit. So I can still use, I can still type command, and it knows what I'm talking about. That's just part of C# syntax. So theoretically, just like all interfaces in C# start with I, all attributes start with or end with attribute, or most of them do, not all of them, but most. So this should give us a way to discover things. What do I want to discover? Let's actually, we have this command here. So let's create like a data structure thing. And this is going to store our actual function. So this is just, so boo, I don't want boo, go away. So there's going to be a reflection thing called function, I think. This may not be, this may not be what I want. Oh, thank you, Alwafus. That's not how you pronounce that, but thanks anyway. Shoot, function. That's method. Maybe it's called a method. I'm looking for, there is a reflection object that will represent methods in your classes and functions in your thing. Method attributes. Method call. method implementation. Okay, this can't be that hard. We've done this before. Okay, let me C# method reflection. So that's not gonna work. What's the name of the type? That's all I need. Just what the type? Method info? Okay, we can do that. So we're gonna grab the method info here. I guess that makes sense. And so this is going to store the method info and then actually play around a little bit with it. So this is going to be the function or command that we're going to execute. And then let's also store a string of the command name. And this is just for my use. This will never be exposed. Nobody's ever going to really read that. I'm just storing that because I want to. So that command name is literally going to be the key in our dictionary that we created. I'm going to do this with properties because I want to. And this way we can actually kind of make it get return command. Cool. It's not going to like that command name because you can't have a property and a class with the same name. So that's not going to work. We're going to have to come up with something else. Program. Sure. that works for me. Get return program name. That's going to want to capitalize on me. There we go. So we do some programs here, rename everything. And so now we have a basic outline of this. I'm hoping I can just fill this in with reflection. Actually, I want this to be immutable. I don't want you to be able to modify what's in this command object. I want it to just be there. So that's sort of why I'm kind of taking these weird turns, I guess. So let's give it a name there. This dot program, set that equal to the program, and the name. Ooh, that's not right. Program name equal to the name. And so this is just a C# object, but yeah, this is what's going to actually store everything that you can actually execute. And so we should be able to just stick that command in here. And then we can access it and actually execute things. So command list. Let's call it a command map because that's what it is. And we're going to create a... I'm actually going to do this a little bit weird. I'm going to have a generator. So I'm going to have a protected constructor here. So we're going to have a... Oops. Discovery. There we go. And this is actually just going to take in a dictionary already. So we're going to pass in the completely formed dictionary and pass it into this. And then this is just going to act on that. So given some set of stuff, it's going to be able to actually do things with it. And we could actually... I've never tried this before. I don't think I want to do that. I don't want to extend a dictionary. That seems like a bad idea. Normally extending data structures is not a good idea. Sometimes it seems like a good idea, and maybe initially it is, but eventually you need something that isn't part of a data structure. Unless you're like building a tree out of a tree, then it kind of makes sense. But if you're building this, which is going to like allow you to execute things, that doesn't really make sense to be part of a dictionary. It contains a dictionary, but it isn't a dictionary. I called it Discovery, so good. The name's at least somewhat consistent. So we're going to set our command map equal to our commands. And so now we have just a list of things to execute. Public void execute. Let's actually give it a better name. Let's call it invoke. And I want to give it a string. So this will be the key that we're going to execute on. And we're going to execute a key. And we'll call it the command map. Ooh, what do I want to do? Let's grab... that won't work. First, let's see if the key exists. So if our command map contains a key, so this will be a method name. And this, I guess we're going to keep it case sensitive, which means our tree thing is going to get a little bit funky because it's going to have to be twice as big, but it should work. So we're going to execute, see if our method name exists, and then we'll grab this and execute something. So if it does exist, grab it, grab the program from it, and let's create a function and just execute that. Execute. Cool. And so now we have this execute function that's just going to do its thing. What am I doing? This is so weird. It's gonna kind of cascade, I guess. So program, I don't actually know how to invoke these things, so this might be a bit of a stroll. Oh, well, that's easy. You give it that. What? It's expecting an object, so I assume it's expecting us to execute this on something, which we didn't really anticipate. So this may be a little bit funky. Sure, let's go there. Or not. Let's see here. Method info. Invoke. So if I invoke this, all right, that does work. Cool. So I can just invoke this with an empty object. I still don't think that's going to work because it's still going to expect something. I feel like this is not how you're supposed to do this, but sure, let's see that. So what this is doing is wrong, first off. But what it's doing is actually taking a random object and executing with these arguments, which there are none. So it's just executing an empty function as part of whatever object and just running with it. So theoretically that does a thing, but I kind of wanted these to have to be static. And if they're static, why do I need an object in the first place? Guess we're going back to the documentation for this one. So this is a little bit different than a lot of what I do because I have not researched a lot of this at all, which is normal for most of my videos, but this one I kind of was just like, let's see what you guys want to work on and we'll just kind of go from there. So if you guys have certain things that you want to see, let me know and we can try to focus on those instead of doing this. Okay, so if a constructor is static, this argument must be null. Cool. So we want this to be null with no arguments. And that should do something. So as long as we get a static function, we are going to execute this. This will throw an exception if it'll throw a null pointer. If it's not, static, so we're going to have to catch that higher up when we're building this dictionary. We can probably throw some other stuff, but I'm going to throw the generator stuff here. So let's do public static command discovery. So this is going to return a new copy of this class, and we're going to say build. Sure. And so what this is going to do is for every assembly.get. Uh-oh. I have forgotten again. What? Get assembly dot something. Okay. Actually, Turret Box actually already had written some code.
GCU is leading.
Hello. I hate how it plays those ads. Let's see here. I may do a little bit of borrowing here. So let me just copy and paste what he wrote, and then we can kind of figure out what we want to keep and what we don't. Okay, that's a little bit weird. Sure. And YouTube has 5.0 forward. Great. I'm sure everything is still fine. So what he's doing is getting all the types in the assembly. We still need to actually get our assembly. So assembly.getAssembly would work. Yeah, that needs to actually be a function. There we go. Ooh. That won't work. Ha. Get executing assembly. That should work. Ha. So it's been a while since I've used these functions, so this may not do exactly what I thought. Let me see if I can get the dashboard back, because that's totally busted. All right. Yes, borrowing, I just mean copy and paste, but it works. It's a vital, vital part of programming. Don't do this if you're in school, though, because they don't appreciate it as much as your work will. But definitely don't. So a note on this, don't copy and paste and then just think it works. Prove it works, because I've seen a lot of people who they'll find something on the internet on Stack Overflow or something, they'll copy it, and then they'll actually like just publish that without testing it or anything, or they'll assume that it works or something. Know what the code is actually doing. Don't just take it because it works, because that's not going to end up good for you. It's just, it will blow up. So let's see here. Get custom attributes of type. So this is going to find, let's walk through this, I guess. So what this is doing is it's taking our current executing assembly, which will be the current executing code base. For every type in there, we're going to search and loop through every method in every type in our program, which might be a bit slow. Especially for bigger projects, this might not be super quick, and we might want to do a better way than having to rebuild this every time. But for now, small project, it should work. And so what we're going to do next is loop through each of the commands. He's using command here, but we actually have a command attribute. So what we're doing is for every method in all of our classes, we're seeing if any of those methods have a custom command attribute. If they do, let's just call this the attribute. If they do have that, then we're adding this to our command list, and then doing a bunch of other fun stuff. So let's build, I guess we can just start building the map now. That should work. So let's do a dictionary of string and commands. So we're going to need to build those commands up from something because we don't have them yet. But yeah, this should work. Commands, new dictionary. There we go. And let's, oops, that's not right. Let's simplify this just a little bit. I'm going to name these, just use the default var. So this doesn't lose the type or anything. It just shortens it and dynamically types it. So if I ever change the type on the right side, the left side type will change to reflect that. And you don't need to change it in both places. It's really useful for like these dictionary initializations because then you don't need to type out the generic types twice because then you have to go and change them. You'd like, if this became an int, I would have had to have changed it everywhere else that referred to it as an int or as a string. And that's just annoying and tedious. So we're not going to do that. So next thing, we have our commands. Let's actually record some of this stuff. That's not right. Let's do our commands, add that on. Let's add an attribute. Wait, no, hold on. That's not right. Actually, you know what? Let's actually store that. Do I want to store that? Kind of. So let's create a new command. Sure. Okay, I got this. Let's do our new command is going to be equal to that. There we go. Computer is being slow. There may be an update waiting for me, which it never used to get slow. Like everybody used to say, when Windows 10 has an update waiting, it gets super slow. That never used to happen, and now it happens all the time. But anyway, we're going to take our method and plug that into our new command and give it the same name. Let's see. Name should work. So that will take the name from our function, plug it in, and then we get this. Something is banging outside. I have no idea what that is. Let's see. So our command exists. Let's actually plug that into this now. Ugh, that's not right. Commands, let's add a new one. And this will be our command dot program name with the command as the second argument. And that should be good. Now we have found, theoretically, if this works, big asterisk, star, super text, whatever. If this works, we now have a dictionary full of commands that we can execute. So let's take that and let's create or return a new command discovery of these commands. So now all we're doing is just passing all of the stuff that we just discovered out, and then everything is good, theoretically. So the reason we are doing this instead of having all of this happen in a constructor is because that kind of gets a little bit gross, because this could throw a bunch of like errors or exceptions or anything like that. And that isn't necessarily great for your program. You don't necessarily want to throw exceptions from your constructors because it's just hard to handle. And so what this allows you to do is catch your exceptions in some normal function without having to rely on all of that. So yeah. Now what we should, we're going to see if this works. So I have the entire everything that I need. I have the previous commands. This is resetting our current line. What I should be able to do is, this isn't going to be optimal at all, but this will prove that it works. I should be able to build.invoke the current line toString. So theoretically, if everything is working, I should be able to type something with that command attribute, and it should execute. That's the idea. Whether that happens or not, I have no idea. But we're going to find out. So let's create a static void test method. And all that's going to do is write to the log with a test message. So now, once I add this guy, trying to do some Java there. Once I make this a command, I should be able to actually go here, type test, hit enter. We got a bunch of logs here, but theoretically, if everything worked, it didn't. Well, what? Why not? It's interesting that they're all lowercase there, but okay. I execute that. We return and nothing happens. So I have missed something. That is a different project. I should start like closing things or actually preparing or something. So we need to figure out what's actually going on here. Luckily, we have a breakpoint. So I'm just going to attach to Unity with that. And then I wonder if, no, because we wouldn't have appended anything to our string yet. That's a weird place to have a breakpoint. Carrying on. Let's type test again, hit enter. Now we're going to hit this breakpoint here. You can see it registers we've typed test. So I should be able to step into that function. I'm going to actually jump here. This may not have worked. Yeah, because we didn't find anything. So maybe this assembly is incorrect. That's very possible. But we're going to need to do that again. So let's do that again. Jump in here. In here, we've got our command attribute. That's interesting. Skip again. We're back to our command attribute. Our command discovery. And that's it. So I think, hold on, is there, nope, there's no documentation there. Let me verify what this does. Because we want one that includes everything that Unity can see at that current time. And then theoretically that, like I was talking about having specific things that work only in the editor and only in play mode, or things that are, you can do more in play than you could just normally. In order to get that actually working, the way I was intending on doing it is just you put all the things in the editor folders that you don't want to execute anywhere else. And that's that. And Unity would just automatically do everything for you. But that didn't really happen. Get the assembly that contains the code that is currently executing. So this is for get entry assembly, and it will be the assembly that is the process executable in the default application domain, or the first executable that was executed by execute assembly. Huh. Nope, no ideas. Let's see here. Well, one thing I can do to prove that what's happening is if I go here and actually move this test out of here and stick it randomly in like this command for whatever reason, it should get discovered now. So I should be able to go here, and theoretically type. And we do get our test message. So now everything is working, but only when they're in that folder, I assume. Let's actually, we can test this some more. General. That's a terrible name. But let's, oh. I don't know why it always does that, but let's do just another command, which will be public static void hello. And what we want to do, yeah, this will work, is log out hello world, the big cliche, and somewhat part of this channel, but that's irrelevant. So if we type test, I should, the return key is going to happen afterwards, so we're going to get test there. But if I type hello, we get hello world. So it's finding everything that isn't part of that editor script. And I think that's happening because those are actually two separate assemblies. And I don't know how to fix that. Except we could, would this work? Maybe. Let's try passing in some assemblies. So let's do params assembly assemblies. If that is spelled wrong, I'm sorry. So what we're going to do is stick another for loop in here. Assembly in that. And so we're going to loop over every assembly in our assemblies. This needs to be an array. There we go. And we'll just do that. Get types. Ooh, ha. There we go. So for each assembly in that list of assemblies, get all the types in that assembly. Loop find stuff that is static at an instance level that is either public or non-public. So you can actually, you should be able to make these like private, and it should work. What am I doing? That's not gonna work. No, but it should find anything. I guess I can demonstrate that later. But now that we have this, we are going to change this thing a little bit. So this build now has to do this dot get type dot assembly. So this will pull the assembly of the current executing class out. So this should, since this is a part of the editor scripts, this should get us the editor assembly. And then dot get executing assembly. I don't actually know if this is going to work, but we're going to try it anyway. We'll see. We may have a conflict here. Wrong thing. Nope, I pulled it out. Okay, good. So let's move this test back. So this will mean that our test is part of the editor assembly, and our hello is part of the other assembly. So if we type test, it'll come from here. If we type hello, it'll come from over here. So if both of those work, we're getting it from both places. That's the end goal. So if I do test, we have no idea if it worked. No. Element with the same key already exists in the dictionary. Oops. I have broken things. So we have a duplicate somewhere, which I wasn't checking for those, so kind of makes sense. Let's see here. Hello. And I don't see anything else. Unless this is doing the same loop twice. Unless this is looping over the editor thing twice. So I guess there's an easy way to test this. If, actually, let's not do that. Let's move it down here. Delete the comment. If our commands contains a key for command, that's not going to work. Command dot program name. So if this already exists, don't do that. That won't add anything to our list. Otherwise, do that. But if it already exists, we are going to debug.log. Let's actually warn. That way it's a little bit more prominent, so you actually kind of notice it a little bit. And let's say a program or a with the given name already exists. Sure. And so this is more because things are going to be coming from all over the place. It's very possible that you actually override things, and we're not doing like a normal shell where you have like a path and you specify the path. This is going over the entire assembly all the time. So if you start importing other people's scripts, this gets more and more likely. So we're going to add just a warning here so that it's a little bit less random and you can kind of detect it and hopefully change it. Maybe we should add like a name spacing. Nah, that's a lot of work. So let's do test. So we get our test message. What about hello? We don't. So this means that all of our information is coming from that other thing. We should have gotten a warning because we would have looped over the thing twice. Let me display those. Yeah, test already exists. So it's wrong, but it actually kind of makes some sense. So what do? We need to get from both places. So what I could do, this would work, is I could go through the command discovery and get the type of it and use its assembly. So this would actually, because this is outside of the editor assembly, it would get both of them. But I don't really want to do this. Like, 'cause while it works, it's not great. I'm actually going to remove these current key code things. That was handy for debugging. But right now it's just kind of making all of this a little bit harder. So, yeah, let's do this. Test. Let me clear this first. There we go. So we get our test message, and if I do hello, we get hello world. So they both work. Now, the trick. Will this work? Let's try changing one of these. I'm curious if this will work. Let's change general, just because it's easier that way. And let's make this so this actually does something. So let's take the main camera. The main camera is the one marked with main camera. And set its transform that position equal to vector3.0. So this will move the position to 0. So theoretically, we can actually 0 something. What am I doing? not what I meant. And it works. So now we have a way to actually interact with the world. It's limited, obviously, but it works. We can actually move things. And that's cool. Now the hard part is, do we want... So like, consider a command like get object. I'm just kind of giving examples here. So if I get an object of our main camera, give it like a by name, and just kind of riffing on the syntax here. But if I get that and set the position to 0, 0, 0. Let's do vectors like that, maybe. So if I do something like this, how do we get that to work? So there's like a piping operator here that says pass it this way. That's sort of coming from like Bash and stuff. We've got some weird syntax here to encode vectors. We've got our object here, our main camera. I don't really know how to make this whole thing work yet. I've said this before, but we may need to get like a lexer working or something in order to get something like this, just so we can kind of decode all the symbols, which would be a fun project, actually. We could write a lexer. Yeah, I don't know. Doesn't throw any errors. That's good. I guess because it doesn't find it in the dictionary, so it just gives up. But what this is actually going to be doing is actually throwing out like a game object. And that's where things get hard. Because, so there's multiple different inputs and outputs here. What's the best way to do that? We could pop things onto a stack or pass them in as like mandatory arguments. Like you need to have an input parameter as your first parameter, and that will be whatever you accept. If you don't have that, then everything else becomes something else, but Actually, okay, I have an idea. So one of the things, like, I agree with the using things for strings. The problem that I see with that is that then you have to get everything that comes in and out has to be a string at that point, which becomes difficult because then I have to figure out how to encode this main camera into a unique value that can be passed to the set position that can be used in that way. And it kind of also prevents using unique things, and it doesn't make IntelliSense very nice. And I kind of want to add all of that. So it's kind of like this thing. I'll give you an example. If I go to, say, PowerShell, the way PowerShell works is I can actually, this is going to be a really bad example, but that's not what I want. Let's see. Let's go to where do I want to go? D? Development? Nope. Development world of 0. And let's go to this project, actually. Let's go to UPM/assets and whatever. So I get here, right? And so what you can do with PowerShell is, I don't really have it, but you can actually, everything is sort of an object. So like when I do the ls command to list everything in a file, each of these rows are actually individual things. That's not going to work. But what I can do then is I can actually pass this to, say, oh shoot. Hold on. I remember this. Okay, I don't remember this. I see. One sec. I'm gonna cheat a little bit. It's been a while since I've used PowerShell, so give me a little slack, not too much. But JSON. Yeah. So what I can do is convert to JSON. I have to pipe this in, but if I do that, that's not what I expected. I was expecting convert to JSON. Okay. Ignore me completely, because I have clearly lost my mind. Oh, never mind. Wrong thing. So, what I can do is, I was using bash commands for PowerShell. Anyway, you can pipe it in to another command, and then suddenly that object becomes huge. You can see all of this information that we didn't have before, like trademark and language and all of that. None of it's really set, but it all exists. And so that's part of what I'm trying to capture here, is I want to be able to take the camera, which is a really complex object with really complex things, and be able to actually pass that down the pipe to this set position. And so that way you can just give any object or any game object to this set position and it will just work. And so as long as you're passing in a game object, set position can work on anything. That's the idea. Whether it works or not, I have no idea. But what I'm thinking is we can kind of set this up, because there's only two things that can happen here. You can have an output. So let's say this hello will have no output, so it can't do anything afterwards. So it's sort of, I guess it's sort of like a terminating statement. I don't know if that's a good idea. No, let's say those terminating statements aren't valid. So what we'd have to do is say set position. That's not going to work. That's not a valid thing. But if I do a game object, and this will just be our input, we may need something to actually specify what this is. But how this is going to work is if I say set the position, there will be some input coming in that will give us a game object, and there will be some output of a game object. So I need some way to specify what that this is actually coming from the input, the pipe, rather than from something else. And we can either do that by having this be a special name, or by giving it some sort of like input thing. And I think this is probably the best. So let's go with that. So this will be our input attribute. And so, ooh, that's going a little bit weird. Let's do a system attribute. And then, not that. That should be everything we need theoretically. And that's just a way to mark the object as being an input. So you see that kind of lights up a little bit and we're good. And so this will return the input. And so this way you can kind of you can chain these statements. That's why I didn't really want void to be an option, because it doesn't really make sense for something to just stop, because there's no good way to indicate that that's what's going to happen. So if you can just keep chaining things, then go for it. So this way you could do like set position, set rotation, set scale. And each of those can be separate commands, and you can just chain whatever ones you need and ignore all the ones you don't. So set position is going to take the input and transform its position. And this is where it gets hard. We're going to have a vector 3 here. And this is going to be the position. And that is the hard part. I don't know how to get that in easily. So we're gonna leave that off for now. We'll take small steps. So set the position here. Do all of that stuff. And so by default, I think, oh, this is gonna get a little bit weird. Let's make another function really quick. And so this one's just going to be for test. We'll say it's called find. And it's going to just take a string and return a game object. So you're going to give it a name for something. And it's just going to run the game object.find to return it or to get it and then return it. So find, that's not going to work. That's just a recursion. But let's do find objects of type. Yeah, game object.find is what I wanted. So that's all we're replicating here, is just taking the input, finding something with a name like main camera or whatever, and returning it. And so theoretically now we have the commands that I laid out. We don't have the join bit, that's to go, but we have two commands that we can kind of work with. And both of these should break things. So if I do like find right now, parameters do not match signature. And so we need to fix that, which I don't know how to do, but we're gonna make it work. So I don't know how far we're gonna get with this. This is probably gonna take a while, but we'll see. So let's see here. What's the best way to do it? I guess there's a somewhat easy way, well, not really an easy way, but we want to register two types. Private type, oh, that's not right. All right, so we're gonna have a type, and this is going to be our input type. And this one is optional. So I'm going to make that nullable. Okay, doesn't actually have to be nullable, but you get the idea. So that's the input, and it'll be null if it doesn't exist. Output type will theoretically always exist, but I guess if you have input types that don't accept anything, maybe an output type that doesn't exist might work. It's not that difficult to make it do what we want, so we'll see. And so I think what I want is we're going to create some sort of execution chain. More like a tree, now that I'm thinking about it. Which means we're kind of getting into the parser bit a little bit, which is different, but anyway, we need to figure out how to execute this. And so it gets a little bit difficult. That difficulty has a lot to do with how do we want this to actually execute. So a better example would be, what if I do something like let's do a comment here. But if I do 1 plus 5 1 plus 5 times 3. What happens here is you get 16. And if we do this backwards, you get 18. So obviously order of operations matters. And so actually encoding that into what we're doing may be a little bit interesting. I don't really know if we want to get into doing all of that right now. because it's going to get hard. And maybe, so I've been looking into lexers. I should probably explain what a lexer is. So a lexer kind of converts strings. So if this program, for example, if I ran this through a lexer, what it would output is going to be individual symbols regarding each type in this. So like this public, for example, would be a symbol. And that's just saying the access that you have. Class is another symbol. Command is another symbol. These brackets are a symbol. Each of those gets parsed into a symbol. And then the lexer kind of handles all of that and gets it kind of into a tree. So you kind of know how everything works. So yeah, that's sort of what I'm talking about when I'm saying we might need a lexer, because that's what's actually going to go through our what we write and figure out what we actually meant. So going back to this example, we're going to have this get object, which is going to be, that just disappeared. That's kind of weird. But we're going to have a get object. That's a symbol. We have this main camera. That's another symbol. Set position and another symbol for our values. Actually, this vector is actually a really complex one because it's a symbol that represents a vector. But there's actually more going on here because there's a symbol for each of these values. And so what the power of all of this is, well, 0, 0, 0 is totally valid. If I do like 2 or 3 plus 5 and then 0, 0, that's also valid. And that's just more complex. But really, what you see in the tree is this 3 plus 5 is actually just an integer, or the end result is just an integer with just some steps to get there. And so you can kind of play around with that. Oh, my throat is not feeling great. All right. So what we want to do, this is gonna, I'm looking to implement find main camera. Let's get that working. And then we can work on set position next. And we'll ignore the pipe for now, because that's just going to be a whole other problem. But this should be good for us, I think. Oh. Okay. How do we want to do this? Good question. We have an input type, an output type. Let's... Type array. And this will be our arguments. So we're expecting this input type to be eliminated from here. So like here, we have, I'm actually going to remove that. That's not an input. So you're going to have a position, for example, passed in as a string. That's not right. Not a position, a name, passed in as a string. So you give it the name, and it goes and finds it. But this isn't an input type. We're not piping this in. That's what the input and output is. It's the pipes, what connects the things. This isn't that. So, So I want to be able to write find main camera. And so for this, I guess, yeah, we can actually just do the translation for strings. That will work. So we can actually take, well, not really this. We're going to have to modify that a little bit. But going back to our console window, when I build and invoke this. I don't want to invoke on the current. Do I want to? Yes, actually. Let's split things here. This isn't the right place for this, but by invoking things here, we're kind of moving away from this UI. And I want as little stuff to be in that UI as possible, as little non-UI stuff. So that's why we're doing this here. What do I want to do? First off, we're going to see if it exists. So let's create a split string. This is questionable because this actually won't work. Like, it'll work for what we're doing, sort of, but not really. And what I mean by that is we're splitting by spaces. So if I look here, both our main camera and our directional light already have spaces in them. So we would actually get 2 additional strings instead of the 1 for main camera and directional light. We don't want that. So we'd either have to do something really janky or actually write something to properly parse this. Oh. So, yeah, that's what we're going to be working on. Let's see. It'll work for now. Why not? So let's do split string 0 for both of these. 'Cause, again, why not? Yeah, that should do it. So, maybe. Getting a lot of errors, but we'll pretend like those don't exist. So if I type hello world, it doesn't work. Did I get rid of hello? I think I might have. General, yeah, so that went away. So let's bring it back. Debug, log, hello. Cool. So that will just print out hello when we type hello. And it does. Cool. So we get hello back. Now, I don't know. Because the hard part is we need to actually be able to organize what goes where. And so maybe instead of typing get object main camera, instead of doing that, what if you get object with name of main camera? Something like that. Because then we have these pairs of arguments and parameters. If we do that, then we can actually easily map these instead of hoping that the order is is preserved. My voice is really trying to not exist right now. So I may have to cut this a little bit short. But yeah, I think we can get this done. So yeah, I think we'll go with that. Okay, so let's take that. And that means we have to change this a little bit. Will that work? Actually, this is actually going to be a really... This should help us a lot, actually. Because... what am I doing? Dictionary of strings. to, what am I doing? So I want to take the string and map it to, so I'm mapping the name or the argument name to a type. Sure. And so we probably won't get to the type. We aren't going to get to the type thing right now. That'll come later. But what we can do is actually find these keys and actually map that. So when I start executing this, we want to create. Do I want to do it this way? Not really. But we'll do it anyway. Argument list. There may be a better way to parse these. I haven't really worked too much with C# console stuff, but we'll see. Generate argument list. And we're going to generate this from our split string. Is there a way to because I don't want the first argument here, because we already used that. I just want everything else. That'll work. Skip 1. So we'll skip the first element. Let's just generate that quick. And this will output a dictionary of strings to strings. We're just going to be working with strings initially here. Hopefully we can pull that out later. And then we'll just have our arguments. That'll just be that initial string list minus the first actual parameter. Then, so we're going to do a dash and then the name. And then after that, we are going to have the actual argument. So let's see how this works. Yeah, this will work. Sure. So let's create the dictionary for now. What happened there? YouTube decided I was done. That was weird. Oh well. So let's take our map here. Yeah, this will work. So I want to grab 2 things off of this list. Will that work? I'm trying to think if there's an easy way to do this. Maybe. Because otherwise I'm thinking you're going to have to like save this and it's going to get gross. And I don't really want to do that. And I think there's an arguments.take, which will take 2. So what about take while? That won't really work. Group. Nope. Okay. I'm overthinking this a lot, but that's fine. Oh well. We tried. So we're going to have a key, I guess, that we're going to have to store. That's gross. And we'll set that equal to null. So for each argument in our arguments, let's actually work with that. So we have our arguments. If our key is null, then key is going to equal the argument. Otherwise, we're going to do this thing. So let's add to our map our key and then our argument as the value, because it's either going to be the key or the value. And if the key is not already full, then we know it has to be the argument. So then we will set the key back to null. I'm pretty sure this functionality already exists, but I don't know about it. So I'll probably check after we're done here. I don't know. It doesn't really make much sense for me to do a lot of that kind of stuff here, even though the initial first half of the stream was like that. All right. Let's see here. If our key is equal to null, the key is equal to the argument. Otherwise, the argument is the argument, and we're good. So that will create us an argument list. And then I want to pass that argument list to with our program, and we want to execute that. Which means this guy is going to need a dictionary of strings, and we can actually generalize this a little bit. We can make this of objects, which changes exactly nothing of what we've done, but it means we don't have to change it later when we actually write this. So then the hard part is I have to go through this and find the arguments. Get generic arguments. That's not what I want. Uh-oh. This may be another one of those searches we have to do. Hello, Earthling. Let's see here. Base definition, generic arguments, none of those are what I want. Unless is this supposed to support overriding? Okay, well that's just silly. Let's go find that. Method info. Invoke. Binding, that's not what we want. Let's look here. So we have parameters. No special anything. Parameters should be null. Was that Bing? Yes. Yes, it was. I switched like 3 years ago, mostly because Google was really annoying me, and I just never switched back. So yes, that is definitely Bing. They actually have done all right lately. So I don't know, it works. And they give you free stuff, so that works too. Kind of like the free stuff. So let's see here. This can't be that hard. Method info. Give me your arguments. How hard can it be to find what I have to pass? It's virtual, member types, metadata, method implementations. That's just the flags. Modules, reflected type, return typed. None of these are what I want. I can get generic arguments, but not the actual arguments. Because the trick here is, now that I've done what I've done, I need to actually order these, which may be not optimal. You know what? Let's just make this a IEnumerable of objects. Way easier. Way easier. And so we're going to turn all those arguments into just objects, which makes this way, way easier. So let's actually use a linked list for this. Actually, I don't need to do any of this. Let's just return the arguments. Done. That was easy. Why doesn't it like that? How can I Google something if I'm using Bing? That is a great question. I still say Google it and all of that, but I don't know. An explicit conversion exists. It really doesn't like me right now, but I guess that worked. So there you go. Now we have an enumerable set of arguments. Let's drop that and just make that arguments. I guess it's expecting an array. So there we go. And that should give us a way to pass strings to things. Assuming I did all that right. We'll find out really quick. So I wasn't going to change even if you wanted me to. So I'm glad that it doesn't upset you, because we would have had a disagreement otherwise. All right. Let's find an object with the name. I'm just going to log out what I find and then return it, because why not? And then I'm going to rename our main camera to camera, because we don't support spaces. Cannot cast from source type to destination type. Okay. Fine. Have it your way. Why can't I switch from an object or from a string to an object? Do I have any VR gear? Yeah, I have a Vive actually. We've done a few videos on Vive. I haven't done too much with it lately because I kind of got sidetracked a little bit. But I definitely have one, and we can definitely play with it. I also have some of these. So these are the Vive tracking pucks. So we can use, I have two of those. I was kind of hoping to do some IK stuff, inverse kinematics with them. But I haven't actually gotten that far yet. So yeah, if you have ideas for what we could do with those, let me know. And we can definitely look into that. Okay. Take our strings. Vive is definitely super fun to play with. Also super tiring. I didn't realize how out of shape I was until I played, shoot, what's the boxing game? There's a boxing game. I played that for like 30 minutes and I couldn't move the next day. It was great-ish. So yeah, I don't know. It's totally different than just anything else. So that part is definitely awesome. We did it. Yay. Kind of talked through it. But we can actually find our camera now. We returned the new camera and everything works, which is awesome. So yeah, we're actually able to pass in string parameters. Nothing super complex, but it works. Making a VR modeling program. I actually have something that's supposed to be like ZBrush. I don't remember the name though, but I've been meaning to actually play around with it a little bit more. I actually have a lot of tools that I mean to play around with. I have some really cool, I found a really cool thing on the asset store actually for making like procedural models. I was going to do a video on that, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. But if you make something really cool in VR or just in general, feel free to ping me because I love to check those things out. Let's see here. I am going to hold my hand in the air like I mean to say something. Yeah, okay, cool. That was good. That was good. We did a lot there. I'm feeling like we could add more to this, but this was really where I wanted to go. Because the next thing, I suppose we can actually, we can start it. We won't finish this next thing, but we can start. So I'm going to create a set of converters, or token converters. Can I create an object? Yes. So what we can do, it won't be any special kind of object, but I've just been using this. Let's see here. So if I create a new command and call it public static void instantiate, let's call it that. So I can give it a string, just a name. I could actually, hold on, this could be even cooler. String primitive type. Let's see if this works. So if I do GameObject.createPrimitive, I want to be able to take whatever I just got and actually create the primitive type with the name. So let's save this as a primitive. Yeah, okay. And then let's do primitive type. I don't know how to do this part though. It'll work. So let's do primitive type. Okay, this is going to get a little bit confusing. Let's call it type. And let's switch on the type. Cool. So what I'm doing is I'm going to select the types. Just for simplicity, I'm going to switch and only select sphere. So if you pass in sphere here, we set the primitive type equal to sphere. We'll need a break. And then we will create this with the primitive type and give it a primitive.name and set that equal to the name. So by default, we need to actually default this to something or it's really not going to like us. So let's just give it a quad as the default value. So if this doesn't work, if I pass in anything that isn't a sphere, it's going to create a quad with whatever name we give it. So I think I called that instantiate. Let's create a ball with, that's a sphere. Did that work? No. No, it did not. And why not? That should have worked. Instantiate with the name and the type. Well, editor dot. Do I have to call that? That'd be an unfortunate. Okay, let's see what happens here. It may just not be creating it because I'm in the editor. Instantiate ball sphere, or I may have spelled it wrong. Yeah. Cool. So it did work actually the first time. It just didn't update for whatever reason. So this bit isn't needed. I just have to spell it right. So instantiate. Ooh, that was weird. Ha. Instantiate ball sphere. I think there may be some issues with typing too fast because we're handling all the typing ourselves. But we can create things. Obviously, I want to expand this a little bit, but it works for basic things. So yeah, so the names are totally optional. You can name it whatever. I can name it spawn if you want. It's all, the idea here is it's all kind of up to you. And that's probably the best because everybody kind of has their own style. So you can kind of do what you want with this. And theoretically it will work. Ish. So obviously this is still the really early phases. This doesn't really do much of anything. But you can give it a single command with string arguments and it will execute it. As long as there's no like spaces or anything in it. So we still need to do like handling of quotes. So if I want to say find directional light, this won't find anything. And it will actually break everything. I agree it could be really handy. That's why we're making it. So let's see here. Directional light. Yeah, you can't do anything with any of this. We don't have the right parsing really to handle any of that. So I can find the camera, but I can't find anything else. So that's sort of stuff that we'll need to do. I'm going to need to take this probably offline and draw a bunch of diagrams to figure out how all of this stuff is going to fit together. Because I don't really know. I've kind of been pulling this apart and kind of thinking about it for a while. Because it's something that I want a lot. Because like this is, I don't know, I feel like this is really useful. And I think there's a lot of games that could actually benefit from this. And a lot of people make this anyway. So why not actually do it? So let's implement an FPS. Maybe that'll work. Because I think, well, will that work right now? Because you're going to need 2 frames for that. So I don't know if this is going to work. But we're going to try. Let's see here. FPS, debug, log, time. This is the hard part. Well, actually, no, it's not hard. Because I can just take the delta time and do that. 1 divided by the delta time. Yeah. So if you divide this, if we get 2 frames a second, our delta time will be 0.5, which that equals 2. Cool. So I should be able to type FPS now once that finishes. And we're getting a whopping 3 frames per second. That's because this isn't running. Theoretically, if I start this, 120. So now we have a way to get the FPS. Granted, you have to type it every time. And that kind of sucks. But we can kind of expand on that. So theoretically, there's going to be some way to actually loop these commands. So you could actually just have it constantly print out the FPS or have a ticking timer or something. Haven't really figured out all of the implementations or ideas for this. But for now, we just have this. But let me actually... So part of the inspiration for this is coming from Mono's REPL, which is just a read, execute, print loop. So this is sort of what it looks like, is you just sort of get this. And this will execute any C# code, and it works anywhere, which is cool. But the thing that I really like about it, or the thing that like is really cool, is you can do this. So you can actually plot things. You can graph things. And I kind of want to grab that and do it in real time in Unity. So as you play your game, you can actually plot your player moving and it will look not like this necessarily. You could do like an XYZ graph, or you could do some sort of three-dimensional thing, or you could display a 3D object. Maybe you want to just like find some mesh in your file and preview it without having to go and select it or something. You could give it the short name and it would just go and find that model and show a little preview of it in your thing. And that's all possible. So that's sort of where I'm planning on heading this. For now, it's basic, but yeah. Last thing, actually, before we do any of that fun stuff, let's go to GitHub. I might get in trouble for this. I hope I don't. Yeah. What do we want to call this? Unity shell? Sure. Sure, that'll work. So Unity shell, a CLI in Unity. And I'm just going to throw this up on GitHub. So if you want to play with this now, you're welcome to. If you want to contribute, I definitely welcome that as well, because otherwise progress will get a little bit slow just because I kind of wanted to make videos about this and that just takes time. So I'll probably do some work just on the side, just when I get time. But if you want to contribute, definitely feel free. So there's that. And then let's actually just push this up there. So before I do that, our font is open font license, which means I can redistribute it. I can actually sell it if I want to. Its license is right there. Can't redistribute it without the license, but yeah, anyway. That's all good. I just want to check quick. That can go away. So everything is good. We have everything we need. So I should be able to push this. I'm going to change a few things though. Not that. Let's change our project settings. There's an editor. When I use source control, not that, I always serialize all of my stuff as text. So all of Unity has metadata about everything. So if I actually open this in my Explorer, you'll see there's all these metadata files. So if I just bring this down here, it looks like this. Some of this stuff can happen to be in binary, which sucks. If you're using this, granted it's smaller, but if you're using this in like a source control, comparing that is really hard. So yeah, there's that. So that's the one thing I usually change. We actually don't need to save this scene. There's nothing special about it. So that should be good. So let's not use that. That's the wrong project. Let's grab this. Actually, yeah, sure, why not? I'm all over the place. So let's clone our thing. I'm going to keep this over here because I do have some projects for some things that I don't necessarily, they're not like super secret or anything. I just don't want them out there necessarily. And I also don't really want some of my file system to be exposed. Not that I think you guys are going to do anything bad, but it's just not a good idea to expose every file on my computer because there's like 8 gigs. Let's see here. Sure. I don't know if that's actually going to work. It seemed to. Okay. So now I have this Unity shell. It should be cloned to the same repo. Changes. That might be a bit weird. Would have expected some changes. I don't know. I always screw this up the first time I do it, just because that's what I do. Okay, I think I've officially screwed this up. Oops. Actually, I can drop a link. Boop. So that is a link to the repository. I'll put it in all the video descriptions for this series because it'll be probably a significant series. But yeah, I'll throw that up there. You can play with it. It's not up yet. It's what we're working on, but I am failing miserably. Let's see. Oh, well, look at me being all smart. I put it in a different place. Okay, so that was worthless. Let's undo that a bit. What am I doing? Publish to GitHub. Sure. Let's do that, but let's not do it that way. Okay. Time to stop being a goof. Pull that over there again. Oops. Let's see. I may have to do my cheaty way of getting this to work. Because normally it just helps if you create the repo first, but I didn't do that. So I don't know. If anybody has any good ideas on how to do source control in Unity, I'd love to hear it. Because I don't know. It's one of those things that I'm still figuring out. So let's see here. What did we call it? Clone. Okay. We're going to have to cheat a little bit. So we have Unity shell now. It's actually in the right place, but it's in a separate folder than everything else. So we're going to copy and paste. Because that's always how you solve all these hard problems. So you can see the files start to pop up there. Hopefully. Yeah, so the git ignore is working, so we're good. Everything is fine. There's our fonts. And everything else. So obviously this is still this is more of a proof of concept at this point. Sort of how does this work? How could we possibly do this? And then we can expand this to actually work well later. But yeah, so let's see. Initial project commit. The most helpful commit message ever. So let's commit that and sync it up. Maybe. There we go. Awesome. So you should now be able to download this, open it in Unity, and do what you want. I don't entirely know how this will work for collaboration yet, but we'll figure that out. I'm hoping to do more of these kind of collaborative things where I don't build like the entire project, because if we do it kind of collaboratively, we can do bigger projects, and those are just more interesting. So we'll see how this goes, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, we tried. So yeah, there's the project. The link will be in the description, like now, and it's in chat, and yeah. So have fun, do something cool, and let me know if it works. So yeah, that's it for this live stream, I guess. That's all I really wanted to cover. But yeah, you can go and mess around with it, write some commands. We probably are going to be fairly strict on what gets in. So like some of the default things like finding stuff, creating objects, things like that. That's going to be part of like the core package, but I don't want everybody or like every single command that you might possibly need to be included by default, because that's just overwhelming. So that probably won't happen. We'll probably figure out some way to actually like download these. Maybe that would be interesting if we made some way to like get them So you could do like, I don't know, effectively behind the scenes and do like a git clone of some repository, and it would clone it into this project, whatever project you're working on. So you could like clone people's things and I don't know. That's like a super cheaty way of doing it, but effectively like a really cheap poor man's package manager. Or we could just hijack a package manager that already exists. But yeah, that's it. Yeah. So until next time, see you, internet. Yeah. That totally worked.